Hello, everybody. How's it going? I'm, I said this before, but I am not home right now. If you didn't notice, I'm streaming from my parents' house and I have a little portable mic. I'm hoping my setup is okay. Just tell me if you can hear me okay. Um, and, oh, are we, wait, where are we starting? We are starting volume 4, right? So we should just be on, I mean, not page 1, but page, something 3 or 4 or something like that. I'm reading off of my Kindle today, so I don't know the exact page number, but I just know we're on chapter 98. Oh, yeah. Blue turnips, that's okay. I figured you were confused. Oh, yeah. Oh, wrong volume. Yep. I am in the guest room at my parents' house, and I go over there sometimes, and I've been like helping them out with some sorting some stuff out, and um, thankfully I'm able to film here because I really didn't want to cancel the stream today, but if I wanted to do it at home, I would have had to like leave, drive for an hour and a half, get home, and then very quickly after, like, start the stream, and I just really didn't want to do that, so that's why I'm here. Page 11. Okay. Yep, we are on chapter 98, page 11 of volume 4. Um, and hello, everyone. I wanna show off my fun little Kindle design since I'm reading off of that today. And that is Gerard Way. My friend got me this sticker. Um, I was so worried because I realized I forgot to actually bring volume 4, and I was like, that was the whole point of what I was gonna do. Um, but then I realized I have the Kindle and I had the ebook file and I could do this. So yeah. Yeah, Moshi would be a My Chemical Romance fan. Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Blue. Okay, I am gonna get started. Um, and chapter 98 is called Infiltration. Moshi and Gumong looked out over a sunken area surrounded by dense forest. Crosses of petrified wood lined 3 sides, covered in chains and shackles, execution platforms. An enormous blood pool was carved out of the middle. Within it, skeletons tangled like flotsam as centuries' worth of the dead rose and fell on the churn of its bloody waves. The Firebat tribe had built a pavilion that extended over the pool's surface, lit by temple lamps balanced on delicate stands, each gleaming brightly in the gloom of the night. The pavilion's construction was exquisite, but a closer inspection would make anyone nauseous. The ground that looked to be composed of fine sand and rounded cobblestones was in truth strewn with countless human teeth. As for those temple lamps, their stands were curving human spines and their bases human skulls. The pavilion was built from human bones. Moshi stared in silent distaste. "Look over there, in the middle," Gumong exclaimed. Moshi glanced over. In the center of this pavilion that was like hell on earth sat a beautiful woman who appeared around 40 years old. She wore gauzy robes and splendid jewelry, with a gold and jade circlet resting atop her brow. Her aura was one of overwhelming luxury and poise. The other bat demons were like planets orbiting her star as they moved around her, trembling in fear as they waited on her whim. "That must be Wu Yan," Gumong muttered. "How strange. She doesn't look like the peerless beauty in the first legend, nor the old demon hag in the second. She seems like a pretty normal queen. Moshi knew Gumang was referring to her looks and nothing else, because at that moment, a bat demon official in military uniform was kneeling at her feet. She was held down by 2 attendants, and half her face was covered in blood. One pointy bat ear had already been hacked off. Wu Yan twirled that ragged ear in her fingers, fiddling with it absent-mindedly. As they watched, she dipped a finger into the oozing blood, painting it over her shining nails as if applying a cinnabar stain. "You've searched all day and haven't found a thing," she said leisurely, still playing with the ear. "Instead, you allowed someone to kidnap this venerable one's medicine. Shunfeng are. Why should I let you live?" The official was shaking. Your Majesty, have mercy." Truly a goth moment, Henry. "This venerable one has shown more than enough mercy. You were in charge of guarding the pill room, yet this venerable one's most important source of blood has slipped through your fingers." Wu Yan's tone was hard. Her red eyes narrowed. "Do you know this is a crime punishable by death?" The official trembled, unable to form words. Wu Yan raised her hand, fire blazing from her palm. In a blink, the angry flames burned the ear to ash. Attendants. "Here." Pinky delicately raised, Wu Yan assessed her freshly painted nails, then pointed a red-tipped finger at the official kneeling on the ground. "Shunfeng R is incompetent, her mistake unpardonable. Throw her into the cauldron to be, boiled alive." The cruelty of the punishment made both Gumang and Moshi blanch. Your Majesty, spare me," the official wailed hysterically. "I beg your Majesty, let me redeem myself. I'll catch Arong and those little thieves who trespassed onto the island. Your Majesty. Wu Yan ignored her completely. The attendants dragged the official away, her desperate screams piercing the dark forest like claws, tearing the night apart. It was a long time before they stopped. Wu Yan sighed. Had this venerable one not been so compassionate, for so many hundreds of years, we wouldn't be suffering such incompetence. She looked up and addressed another bat demon kneeling by the pillar. "Shunfeng R's disciple?" The bat demon squeaked in terror. "Did you see how your Shifu ended up?" "I saw it. Wu Yan smiled thinly. "Do you want to end up like her?" "No, I don't. Not at all." The Bat Queen's smile froze on her face. "Where's your gratitude, then? Shouldn't you make yourself scarce and start tracking down the trespassers with the other squads?" Yes. The disciples staggered to her feet and fled in abject terror. Wu Yan closed her eyes and leaned back against the soft cushions to rest. "Afang, come," she said with a wave of her hand. Her handmaiden Afang hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. "How many Xueling pills are left in our stores?" "Your Majesty, Miss Rongrong was sick the past few days, so her blood couldn't be used. Only 2 pills remain." 2 pills. Wu Yan sighed. "In that case, I won't take one today. The yin energy in this blood pool is strong enough. I can delay it a short while." "So that's how it is," Gumang said quietly. Moshi turned to look at him. "I was confused why Wu Yan didn't personally track us down. Something so serious happened on her island, yet she only dispatched her subordinates with orders to kill us." "Now it makes sense," said Gumang. She probably damaged her vital energy with her reckless cultivation method. Now she has to take a Xueling pill every day to relieve the pain. Without Rongrong, her source of medicine's been cut off, so she's conserving her remaining Xueling pills until she gets Rongrong back. Yep, she just said blood pool. The next best thing is to stay by the blood pool instead of running about. Its yin energy will minimize the damage to her body. Gumong prodded Moshi with his elbow. Hey. What? Do you still have that life crystal showing Yue Chunqing's condition? I do, replied Moshi. What of it? If the queen doesn't plan on personally seeking us out, Murong Xiong should have no problem fending off other demons. Gumong paused. We came to rescue Yue Chunqing, not to make trouble. We shouldn't fight if we don't have to. We have two objectives. Lift the curse from Yue Chunqing and make it off of this island safely. Well then, why not get closer to the queen and monitor her movements? She's set a barrier over the island to stop us escaping. But every barrier has its weak point. I'm thinking if we study her, we can figure out where the barrier is weakest and escape when the time is right. Just keep an eye on Yue Chunqing's crystal to make sure he's okay. Moshi thought it over and agreed. But how are you going to get close to her? About that. To be honest, sometimes the Liao Kingdom's spells are much more useful than Chonghua's. With a snap of his fingers, a tiny flame appeared at Gumong's fingertips. He tossed this flame toward the sky, where it instantly scattered into countless colorful butterflies that covered them both. You're casting a Liao Kingdom black magic spell on me? Moshi's voice was low but severe. He was almost inaudible, but Gumong wasn't taking any risks. Reaching up, he gently tapped Moshi's lips. Little beauty, why are you fussing? Listen to Goga and hush. Moshi was rendered entirely speechless. Things like spells, if they're not hurting anyone, does it matter if they're from the Liao Kingdom or Chonghua? If they work, they work. Where did all of these strict rules come from? More and more colorful butterflies gleaming with spiritual light amassed until the two of them were enveloped in a dazzling brilliance. Fortunately, Gumong had set down a concealment spell beforehand, or they would have been instantly discovered by the Firebat patrols. The light glinting from the butterfly wings brightened to a blinding white before gradually winking out. Gumong chuckled. Look at me now. Standing before Moshi was a pointy-eared Firebat handmaiden with a scarlet mark on her brow, her face bright and pretty. Her slender, shining blue eyes peered at him over a charmingly sloped nose, and her lips seemed to curve mischievously even when she wasn't smiling. This bat demon had her own distinct beauty, but upon closer examination, each of her features were unmistakably Gumong's. Moshi was flabbergasted. Illusion butterfly transformation technique. My own invention, Gumong said, producing a little mirror from his Tiankun pouch. Take a look at yourself. Moshi grabbed his wrist and growled, You changed my face into a servant girl's too? Gumong only smiled and held up the bronze mirror. Moshi had no desire to see such a terrifying reflection. He shoved the mirror back down. Gumong held it up again, and Moshi again pushed it away. Finally, Gumong relented. All right, I know your temper, so I transformed you into a guard. There's nothing for you to get mad over. He held up the mirror once more. Moshi shot a glance at his reflection and saw his features had indeed changed. He had gained a pair of pointy bat ears, and his skin had paled to a bone white, with lips as red as if he'd drunk blood. He glanced downward. His black clothes, trimmed in gold, had likewise transformed, turning into robes identical to those of the Bat Island guards. Gumong patted his shoulder. Let's go. Low-level bat demons surrounded the Blood Pool Pavilion, so the pair hid in the trees to await their opportunity. When a servant girl and a guard at last approached, they sprang out and struck them unconscious. Gumong dragged the two bat demons into a secluded corner and collected their waste tokens. Put this on just to be safe. Gumong and Moshi each took a waste token. After concealing their human scents, they slipped into a group of bat demons as they passed by. Yet it wasn't long before a burly female bat demon noticed the newcomers and began to berate them. "Hold it. What's up with the two of you? Don't you have work to do?" This female bat demon had a deeply wrinkled face and carried a whip. She thrust her chin toward Gumong and Moshi as she rebuked them with a hand on her hip. "Her Majesty is displeased tonight. Don't you think you should wise up? Or do you want to be sucked dry and turned into leather?" With a twitch of her hand and a shake of her flabby white arm, her whip cracked toward them like a swift snake. As the long whip was about to strike Gumong's face, Moshi's hand shot out, catching the lash head-on. Silence fell over the group. The rough whip had cut Moshi's palm open. Blood seeped between his fingers. "What are you doing?" the bat shouted. "You dare defy me?" Moshi looked up. "You said it yourself. Her Majesty's mood is foul tonight. If she sees a servant girl with her face ruined for no reason and finds it inauspicious, I'm afraid we'll all be made into leather." Among demons, the Firebat tribe was not known to be particularly intelligent. Faced with this explanation, the female demon stared blankly and came up with no retort. At last she snorted. "Fine, I'll let you off this time, but see if I don't get you the next." Gumong answered with a smile. "Jiejie is right. I understand. I'll never do it again." This bat was quite slow-witted. She smugly snorted again and pulled back the leather whip, fastening it at her waist. "Jiejie, actually, we're not idle," Gumong wheedled. "It's just that our companions were too fast. We were a step behind, and all the work was snatched away. Jiejie, if you're willing, give me something to do. I'd like to take some of your burden." The bat demon looked him up and down. "Little lass, you have a silver tongue in that pretty mouth." She thought it over and waved her hand. "All right, go make up a plate of sweet melon and fresh fruit. Bring it to the inner courtyard." After giving her orders to Gumong, she turned to glare at Moshi. Yeah, there's definitely some Xianxia novel bingo that we're filling up right now, all in a very short period of time. Especially with the butterflies and the blood pool, which I kind of forget what the blood pool is from or when that happens, but I haven't actually finished TGCF, so that might be why. And as for you, it's not your break time. Can't you keep it in your pants for 1 second? Stop trying to hook up with every female demon you see. Go patrol. Moshi had experienced his fair share of struggles. This wasn't the first time someone had ordered him around. But no one had ever ordered him around while daring to pelt him with words like "stop trying to hook up" and "keep it in your pants." His face was almost green as he glared back at the bat demon. "What are you glaring for? You're a puny little guard. You dare defy your superiors?" "Jiejie, don't blame him," Gumong hastily cut in. "He was born with a face that begs to be punched. He looks like he's giving you attitude, but in reality, he thinks Jiejie's words are very wise." "Is that so?" the bat demon asked skeptically. Expression chilly, Moshi fell silent for a few moments, then stiffly spat, "Yes." The bat demon was still suspicious. Gumong shot Moshi a significant look. He obviously wanted him to explain himself more fully. Moshi could do nothing but grit his teeth and say, "Madam, your advice is invaluable. In the future, I will certainly avoid immorality. Thank you for your wisdom." I have to admit something, which is that I'm, like, kind of a fake MDZS fan. I watched The Untamed and I watched some of the Donghua, and I read like up to, I don't know, half of the second book, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I still plan on like finishing that series, but I don't actually, I just sort of like know what happens because of the fandom. Like I've kind of been spoiled, but I haven't actually finished that series, so I'm like, yeah. um, we were at a scene break. Okay. With the Bat Demon successfully diverted, Moshi and Gumong split up to tackle separate tasks. The inner courtyard of the pavilion was the queen's private quarters. Male guards were forbidden entry. Moshi went to patrol a different area of the blood pool, while Gumong descended those steps made of human bone and carried a plate of fruit into the heart of the pavilion alone. As Gumong turned a corner, a line of servant girls emerged. The demon at the front glanced at him. Delivering fruit? Yes. Bring it to the agate pool. Her Majesty is there now. Of course, Gumong had no idea where the agate pool was, but the bat demon subconsciously tilted her chin as she spoke. Gumong was clever. He snapped up that tiny little detail and smiled. Right away. Fruit platter in hand, he sought out Wu Yan. He soon found that the so-called agate pool was a heated bath filled with boiling blood. The human blood inside was millennia old, prevented from drying out or rotting by some unknown method unique to the Firebat tribe. Steam slowly unfurled from its surface like a hot spring. Queen Wu Yan sat at the edge of the pool. She had already undressed. A scarlet bathrobe was draped carelessly over her shoulders, revealing snowy white arms and a good half of her ample bosom. Her jade-pale legs were like rippling milk, astonishingly tender as she dipped her toes into that thick blood and splashed up droplets like shining red beans. Wu Yan's personal servant girl, Afang, was arranging her mistress... I keep saying A, but it's Ah, but they just write A. It trips me up. Afang was arranging her mistress's hair in preparation for her bath when she spotted Gumong out of the corner of her eye. Your Majesty, the fruit is here, she said. Would you like to bathe first or enjoy some refreshments? So many horrid things have happened today. I've had my fill on anger alone, Wu Yan said bitterly. What's the point in eating? Afang shot Gumong a look, indicating that he should set down the plate of fruit and withdraw. Gumong obeyed, depositing the platter and retreating to the side of the room with eyes lowered. He had no interest in watching women bathe. Besides, although Wu Yan maintained herself well, he couldn't miss the fine wrinkles at her waist and neck. Even if she was a demoness, it didn't feel right to see such intimate details. But what choice did he have? Any one of Wu Yan's movements might reveal the clues he needed. He watched her carefully, doing his best to avoid lingering on certain areas. Wu Yan shrugged off the red bathrobe that concealed her figure and slipped into the blood pool, completely naked. Closing her eyes, she sighed quietly in relief before stretching her arms and leaning against the side of the pool. She let her attendants scoop up the warm, flowing blood with small bamboo cups and pour it over her back. What Gumong saw next left him astounded. As if he wasn't already astounded by, the blood pool and all that. That is the end of the chapter. Hold on, I want to look at the chat, but I just got distracted by the chapter title. We're on chapter 99, which is called Moshi the Concubine. Lord of Me with Scum Villain, I've consumed millions of words of fanfic, but I never actually finished reading it. Okay, I'm glad that, it's really similar for me with MDZS. So I'm glad someone understands. And there's no reason why I haven't finished reading it. I just was also reading a million other things, and I never got around to it. But I'm I like it. I know that I like it. It'll happen one day. And yeah, I should follow Brittany's read-alongs. That would be nice. Thank you, Blue, for the page number. Yeah, Meat Bun and her titles. Also, Meat Bun and her gross details. As the hot blood washed over Wu Yan's skin, those fine wrinkles slowly vanished. Wu Yan's appearance was undergoing minute changes in the steam of the pool. The loose skin of her face became taut and flawless. The faint crease between her brows seemed to smooth. The sagging folds at the corners of her mouth gradually disappeared, and the fine lines on her lips faded to nothing. Her entire figure grew so tender and delicate that she resembled the first flower bud on an early spring branch. The bloodbath transformed the dignified beauty of a lady in her 40s into the fresh loveliness of a gorgeous young maiden. She was exceedingly charming, like a white blossom soaking in the red blood pool. As she absorbed the blood of humans who'd perished thousands of years ago into her veins, her skin flushed with color and her features turned dewy and pristine. Wu Yan cupped a handful of blood in her palms, sipping delicately through scarlet lips. After a few swallows, her lashes fluttered open. Even her eyes had become as clear and pure as those of a girl in her 20s. Watching this outrageous scene unfold, Gumang was struck by a realization. Wu Yan was the devastating beauty in the Liao Kingdom's legends, as well as the wrinkled and white-haired old hag. This Bat Queen couldn't figure out how to cultivate into immortality, and she did not merely fail, but even severely damaged her vital energy, making her age rapidly. A demon's natural lifespan was long. At Wu Yan's age, she should be in her prime. How could she possibly be willing to lose her beauty? The Xueling pill refined from the blood of the feathered tribe should have the same effect as the agate pool. No, it must be even stronger. Not only could it repair Wu Yan's vital energy, it could restore her body's youth. Perhaps the blood pool could return her to her early 20s, and only briefly. But the Xueling pill probably returned her figure and features to her teenaged appearance and kept them that way for a long time. Wu Yan soaked in the pool, its yin energy revitalizing her fully. She glowed with youth from the inside out. Even some of her unhappiness seemed to have dispersed. When she spoke again, her tone was relaxed. Ah Fang, say, who are these people who came to the island? According to the Shangao, there are 4 of them, all men, Ah Fang replied. But the Shangao swears a lot and never says anything reasonable, so that's all I could learn. 4 men, Wu Yan sniffed. This venerable one doesn't go out to kidnap people anymore, yet these ants still come swarming to my island. They deserve to be made into my personal playthings. Ah Fang said nothing. I was right, Gumang thought. She didn't say keep them as playthings. She said make. This Bat Queen really is carrying a torch for someone. That's why she used goo worms to change Yue Chengqing's features. Which poor bastard is so charming a Bat Queen would yearn madly for him all this time? Your Majesty, most humans live but a few decades. The last time, when that cultivator came to the island asking for medicine to save his mother, he only lasted a dozen years before he died. How long do you think you can play with these 4? Wu Yan lifted a finger from the pool. Dark red beaded at its tip. They dared steal this venerable one's feathered tribe medicine. After the way they've angered me, so what if they don't last long? Anyway, they're mere puppets. They're not... She paused. The innocent expression disappeared from her tender and tranquil face, and was replaced with the seething madness even demonic magic couldn't disguise. They're not the real him, Your Majesty. Forget it. I won't bring it up again. Wu Yan leaned back, head pillowed against the stones at the pool's rim. He's an immortal, she chuckled. But this venerable one lost real affection for that craven traitor long ago. After all these centuries... The only thing this venerable one can't forget is his handsome face. Creating an identical copy is nothing difficult. Gumang was shocked. What? The man Wu Yan had set her eyes on was an immortal? But after the shock passed, things started to fall into place. Of course, why else would she so insistently defy her nature as a demon to cultivate, attempting to step onto the immortal path rather than the demonic way? It seemed it was because her Prince Charming was an immortal. Since antiquity, immortals and demons had stood opposed. How infatuated must this bat queen have been to try changing her own nature to be with such a man? And that immortal later became a traitor. He must have somehow disappointed her greatly. Not only did she fail to cultivate into an immortal, she ended up with a sickly body that was deteriorating in the prime of her life. Thus, her old infatuation had decayed into twisted obsession. She wasn't willing to meet any men who weren't of her tribe, but if a human man happened to trespass onto Bat Island, she would transform him into that remembered immortal, then toy with him and torture him to death. Looking at this demon, Gumang thought her worthy of both hatred and pity. He couldn't help but sigh. Ah Fang was still massaging Wu Yan's shoulders. Yes, we'll catch those 4 wretches, as well as the little rascal they wanted to snatch away. We'll feed them goo worms to change their faces, wipe their memories, and keep them on the island to serve your majesty obediently. Humph, that's letting them off lightly. Wu Yan's mood was brightening. You always say just what I like to hear, she said, smiling. She turned her head. Bring the fruit over. This venerable one will partake. Gumang gathered his wayward thoughts and calmly raised the white jade plate in both hands. He crossed over to the agate pool and knelt deferentially. Wu Yan picked through the fruit with slender, snow-white fingers. Eventually, she pointed at a small pile of lychees. These. Peel them. Yes, your majesty, replied Gumang. A servant girl hurried over with a small celadon bowl. Gumang nimbly peeled the gleaming, translucent lychees, 6 in all, and arranged them in the bowl. Wu Yan plucked out one and closed her cinnabar-stained lips around it, filling her mouth with its tangy sweetness. She savored it and said, These lychees are extraordinarily good today. Gumang smiled but made no sound. He had placed a soul-recording spell on the plate of fruit when he brought it over, then layered some other illusion spells he had once thought useless for battle to hide its traces. Under the spellwork, the lychees tasted uncommonly sweet and delicious. His talent for spellcasting was outstanding, and the fire bats were exceptionally simple-minded. Gumang's plan went off without a hitch. When Wu Yan ate the lychee, the soul-recording spell would disperse within her, absorbing all the memories Gumang needed. Later, he would only need to recite the incantation, and this intangible spell would disengage from Wu Yan's mind, return to Gumang, and present all the information it had collected. Wu Yan finished the fruit and wiped her fingers with the silken handkerchief offered by a servant girl. Sated, she lazily closed her eyes and reclined against the side of the pool to soak further. The most important step was completed. Gumang sighed in relief. But a moment later, he heard Ah Fang ask, Your Majesty, will you require a guard to service you tonight? Gumang choked mid-sigh. Service? Xue Niu's dual cultivation method boosts longevity. There is a footnote. If I can open it. Okay. Xue Niu, also known as the Dark Lady, the goddess of sex, longevity, and war. This venerable one can't take a Xueling pill today, so I must collect yang to mend yin. Of course a guard's services are required. Gumang stared in horrified silence. I'm now understanding the chapter title. I think. Go make arrangements for this venerable one. Yes, your majesty, answered Afang. Afang left, while Wu Yan remained in the blood pool. This beauty seemed like a female ghost that had crawled out of purgatory, indescribably exquisite. She stuck out a pinky, studying the vermilion at her fingertips, then said absently, This venerable one is in an ill humor today. Prepare some fragrance and liven things up for me. At once, your majesty. 2 bat demons came forward from either side, each holding a teardrop-shaped crystal bottle filled with petal-pink flower nectar incense. They knelt by the pool, bending their elegant necks to pour the perfume into the crimson blood. Within seconds, the hall filled with fragrance, its heady scent dispersing throughout the entire pavilion and drifting outward. The scent was syrupy sweet, a kind of fragrance Gumong had never smelled before. It seemed to be a blend of all the scents he liked. He smelled grass, the perfume of a lotus pond in summer, and the clear sweetness of honey. As he marveled that there could be a scent on earth so perfectly suited to his tastes, he saw out of the corner of his eye the expressions of intoxication on the faces of the other bat demons. Now that was a bad sign. This fragrance must be like the ephemera Murong Lian smoked. It had a hypnotic effect. Gumong shook his head vigorously and began circulating spiritual energy to suppress the incense's effects. Refocusing his mind, he looked around again. As expected, all the demons in the pavilion wore expressions of perfect bliss, as if they might ascend to heaven at any moment. Wu Yan leaned against the side of the blood pool, her features becoming increasingly alluring under the influence of the incense. She was as languid and soft as rich spring soil, her coquettish eyes like rippling silk, her carmine lips lightly parted. This gentle, illusory fragrance bled outward like ink on paper. A short time later, Afang returned. Your Majesty, the guards. A row of bat demons filed into the pavilion behind her. All had broad shoulders and narrow waists, their faces compellingly handsome. Gumong swept a glance across them, his eye immediately catching on the one with the most gallant features. As expected, Moshi's name had been called. But judging by his expression, he didn't yet know why. He knitted his sword-like brows, eyes skimming the group of demons before him. His gaze paused fleetingly on Gumong, then slid away, some faint confusion showing in his eyes. Oh no, thought Gumong. Moshi was the type who was beautiful but oblivious. Usually, his glacial expression was sufficient to reject a crowd of wild admirers, dashing their hopes with a single sharp look. Yet as soon as he encountered something he didn't understand, confusion would surface upon his features, thawing that bitter coldness and revealing a face that was young and guileless. In brief, he was a beauty. At this point, there was no way to hide Moshi's attractiveness. Gumong could only hope that Wu Yan had peculiar tastes or that she was blind. He began to pray, Don't choose princess. Don't choose princess. Princess has an explosive temper. You can't handle the consequences. He was still chanting devoutly when Wu Yan lifted a finger and pointed it right at Moshi. It'll be you. Gumong stared in horror. Moshi blinked in confusion. Wu Yan stretched languidly and rose from the blood pool. The fire bat tribe had a unique constitution. Instead of staining her body red, the blood rolled off her like normal hot spring water to reveal her naked body, supple as white jade. This demon's lack of propriety made Gumong want to bash his own head in. Wu Yan stepped straight out of the bath. Gumong only saw her bare back, but where Moshi stood, he would be seeing her front. Gumong risked a peek at Moshi's face. A series of vivid colors passed over it like a rotating carousel lantern. But the fire bat tribe wasn't sharp, and had difficulty reading expressions, and the incense fumes had dulled Wu Yan's focus and self-restraint. She saw only Moshi's handsomeness and none of his menace. The Bat Queen spread her arms provocatively, then gathered her hair and clicked her tongue. "What a hopeless little servant you are. I've selected you to attend me. Did you freeze up in joy? Come, help this venerable one dress." After such an invitation, what more did Moshi need to hear? His eyes flew wide as he first stared at Wu Yan in shock, then swung his gaze over to Gumang, who guiltily lowered his head. Moshi seemed to choke on his words. He slowly looked back at Wu Yan, his handsome face going a stunning shade of green. That's the end of the chapter. Princess it is. This chapter title is making me laugh for reasons, but it's not pronounced exactly the same. Chapter 100, Poor Shimei. The honeypot scheme was a time-tested ploy recorded in the 36 stratagems. There is a footnote for that. A 6th century treatise outlining a series of stratagems used in war, politics, and civilian life. A beauty sent into an enemy's sumptuous tent could become the poison that brought them down. But not every beauty was suited for this kind of work. For instance, you might send out the famed seductress Diao Chan to coordinate a plan of attack from within and without. There's a footnote for Diao Chan, a beautiful woman from Romance of the Three Kingdoms who seduced the warrior Liu Bu and convinced him to kill the warlord Dong Zhuo. But if you tried to do the same with a legendary female warrior like Mu Guiying, and another footnote, legendary female warrior from the generals of the Yang family saga, and a symbol of courage and loyalty. Blue. Here I was laughing at how this reminds me of Bing Mei. I didn't even think about Shimei. Yeah, and the 3 footnotes in a row, I didn't really absorb any of that, so I hope y'all did. Gumang was intimately familiar with Moshi's temper. Moshi could weather injury or insult without batting an eye, but romantic liaisons between men and women were intolerable to him. When Moshi was young, he had watched his mother and uncle carry on a sordid affair, and as an adult, he compulsively avoided relationships. I mean, some relationships of a certain kind. He couldn't abide women having improper thoughts about him. In all his 30 years, Gumang alone had managed to mess around with him without getting killed. Upon seeing Moshi's hands clench into fists, teeth visibly grinding in his handsome jaw, 1,000 ideas flashed through Gumang's mind. At last, he shouted with a bolt of inspiration, "Why is it you?" All the bat demons, Moshi included, turned to stare at him. Wu Yan narrowed her eyes. You two know each other?" Gumang knelt, faking flustered concern. "Your Majesty, please forgive my rudeness." "This venerable one asked you a question. The two of you know each other?" Wu Yan glanced at Gumang, then at Moshi. "He's your lover?" The Firebat tribe were demons that sprang from the union of beasts and depraved members of the Feathered tribe. Naturally, they had no taboo against taking others' husbands or wives. If Gumang lied and said Moshi was his lover, this Bat Queen might find the prospect more thrilling and be less likely to let him go. So he quickly put on a hateful expression as he looked up to answer Wu Yan. "How could I be his lover? I'm not even done loathing him. Your Majesty, forgive me. I was overcome with revulsion, which is why I offended your Majesty." Wu Yan's curiosity was piqued. She blinked her bright brown eyes. How did he provoke you? Gumong rose and pointed an accusing finger at Moshi. Without blinking or stammering, he announced, "He can't get it up." Both Moshi and Wu Yan were completely taken aback. A hush fell over the pavilion. That's actually a genius idea, though, in this situation. The female demons all eyed Moshi, whispering among themselves. A few of the younger ones couldn't hold themselves back and tittered loudly behind their sleeves. Meanwhile, some of the male demons who had entered with Moshi looked at him with undisguised sympathy. "How do you know?" asked Wu Yan. Gumong ignored Moshi's stare, which seemed ready to slice him to ribbons, and blurted, "Your Majesty, I dual cultivated with him before, but he was unreliable and damaged my vital energy. How could I let this go?" The gazes on Moshi became judgmental. It was one thing if he simply wasn't up to the task, but how bad did his technique have to be for him to injure the demon dual cultivating with him? Even Wu Yan had her doubts now. She had planned to use the blood pool bath and Xuan Yu's dual cultivation technique to repair her vital energy because she couldn't take a Xueling pill. If she was led astray by beauty and chose an unreliable guard to serve her, the results would be the opposite of what she wanted. She turned at once to rage at Ah Fong. "This is the man you picked?" Terrified, Ah Fong blanched and dropped to her knees. She kowtowed in apology, then spoke sternly to Moshi. "What are you still standing here for? You want to anger Her Majesty further? Get the hell out!" Moshi was so furious he was shaking from head to toe. Yet he had nowhere to vent his anger. In the end, he shot a last vicious glare at this crowd of lunatics, then glowered at that lying ruffian before turning to leave. Wu Yan announced to the remaining male demons, "This venerable one is weak today. If any of you are unreliable, get lost. If you remain here and this venerable one picks you and you hurt my vital energy, I promise you can't bear the consequences." The Firebat tribe was licentious by nature. These male demons were all too eager. Upon seeing their queen's naked, supple body and breathing in that incense, their faces flushed and their eyes shone. They clamored to offer their services. "I can do it. Your Majesty, I can. Your Majesty, I'm great in bed." Gumong looked on incredulously. Thank goodness these demons were slow-witted. If this were the cleverer Qingqiu fox tribe, the mishap would not have been settled so easily. It seemed Gumong had gotten into the queen's head. In the end, she picked a tall, strapping demon with thick hair and retired to her rooms with him. Ah Fong closed the door for them and turned to the other demons at the agate pool. "All right, that's it for tonight. You're dismissed. Go cultivate and gather energy for Her Majesty." "Yes," the demons chorused. The crowd hastily dispersed. Gumong saw that some of the female demons looked anxious. They rushed over to the male demons the queen hadn't selected, fighting among themselves to speak with them first. Gumong's suspicions were roused. Why were they in such a rush? What did go cultivate and gather energy for Her Majesty mean? As he muttered to himself in contemplation, he tidied up the fruit plate in a corner and slipped out of the pavilion before he could be noticed. Unexpectedly, his questions were answered the moment he left the inner courtyard. Just outside, those female bat demons and male guards had already paired off, embracing passionately. Even the wrinkled and pudgy female demon who had struck him with the whip was looking for a male demon to join her. Those who found partners to consort with disappeared into a number of simple thatched huts on either side of the pavilion. Soft thumps and gasps already rose from several huts with their curtains pulled down. As Gumong watched, wisps of white smoke floated up from the huts where the demons were copulating and wound towards the inner courtyard of the pavilion, finally converging above the queen's abode. "So, Not only could Wu Yan restore her energies from cultivating the yin and yang path, she could also harvest the spiritual energy created from dual cultivation between her tribe members. Even Gumong, shameless as he was, had to blush at this. Still, he had to marvel. This Firebat tribe was born of the Feathered tribe's beastly dalliances, yet they could use sex to increase and mend their energy. The living things of the 9 provinces were wondrous indeed. Without warning, a heavy hand came down on his shoulder. Gumong was already on edge in this erotic atmosphere, terrified that some hapless male demon would try their luck with him. At this unexpected touch from behind, he jerked his head around. But before he could get a clear look at the newcomer's face, Gumong had already been pinned from behind as his assailant's other hand came up to cover his mouth. The demon said not a word as he dragged Gumong toward the nearest thatched hut. Gumong panicked. This bat demon was shockingly strong, but using magic would instantly give Gumong away. All he could do was squirm. His strength was no match for his assailant's. Not only was Gumong unable to struggle free of his grasp, the demon had covered Gumong's mouth so tightly he couldn't make a sound. He shoved Gumong into the hut and tossed him roughly into a pile of straw. The bamboo curtain tumbled down, blocking the moonlight and plunging the small hut into darkness. Sunk in that soft heap of straw, Gumong's scalp prickled. The Firebat tribe descended, however crookedly, from the Feathered tribe, and the Feathered tribe were birds. The most primitive areas of their territory, the places where they mated, for example, followed the instinctive habits of demon birds. Thus this sex hut contained no bed, but a nest-like pile of straw. The pungent scent of it assaulted Gumong's nostrils, along with the primitive beastly musk, so intense he almost choked. To fight or not to fight, do nothing, and this male bat demon would take him by force in the dark. Fight back, and not only would he fail in his mission to crack the barrier around the island, he might also put Yue Chunqing and the others in danger. His mind buzzed with worry. As that tall figure stalked toward him, Gumong shrieked miserably, "Daga, if you have something to say, let's talk. I'm just a fledgling. I'm not suited for yin and yang dual cultivation. Consider someone else." The demon ignored his rambling. He hauled Gumong around and pressed him into the straw pile. "Motherfucker," Gumong shouted. "You still won't stop? You fucking get off to this? Huh?" "Keep shouting." His assailant spoke at last. His voice, low and electrifying, made Gumong shudder against his will. That cornered, furious, strained, frustrated voice spoke right in his ear, rising and falling with its owner's damp, scalding breaths. "And I really will fuck you to death." Gumong blinked. "I've fucking had enough. Don't think I won't do it." After what seemed like an age, the large hand around Gumong's throat finally let go. As the other demon stood up, a fireball ignited in his palm, illuminating the small straw hut. Mo Shi was biting his lip in the orange firelight, staring daggers at Gumong as he lifted that handful of flames. Those pretty phoenix eyes contained fury, yet were also tinged a delicate red. In a departure from his usual fastidious propriety, the collars of his robes were in disarray from Gumong's struggles beneath him. I thought it was Moshi. Gumong rubbed at the 5 livid finger marks on his throat and gasped for air. He rolled his eyes. "Are you crazy? All I said was you couldn't get it up." Moshi clenched his teeth. "You couldn't keep your mouth shut? Was I supposed to stay quiet and wait for you to start a fight, then?" Gumong nearly retched, heaving for breath. His blue eyes were misty as he looked up at Moshi. "Looks like I should have said, yeah, this guy is totally hung. 7 rounds a night is no problem. He'll satisfy you so completely you'll wish the night were longer and let the queen yank you like a concubine into her bedroom to disgrace you 100 times over. You, what? Gumong plunked himself down on the pile of straw and took a great lungful of air. You scared the shit out of me just then. I really thought you were some bat demon in heat, he mumbled. When he finally recovered his composure, he pulled himself upright and looked up at Moshi. Let's talk business. How's Yue Chunqing? Moshi tamped down on his anger. No change to the crystal, he replied. Gumong rubbed his neck again and coughed a few more times. That's good. Oh yeah, put out that flame. This bamboo curtain doesn't block light, and bat demons don't like fire. If they see it, they'll know something's wrong with this hut. I set down a light concealment barrier. It's better to be cautious. After a pause, Moshi snapped his fingers. The fire winked out. Gumong sat and breathed steadily. We're almost finished here. Try to be patient, he said. As soon as I pull out the soul recording spell I left on Wu Yan, we'll know where we can leave the island. With that, Gumong began to mouth the incantation. Motes of white light streamed slowly from the pavilion, passing through the walls of the hut and converging at Gumong's fingertips. Over the space of an incensed time, a pearlescent ball of light coalesced in Gumong's palm. Look, this is Wu Yan's mind, Gumong sighed in relief. I recorded the secrets of the barrier and also asked it to find the reason she wants to make people into puppets. Seeing as Yue Chunqing fell victim to her gu, I thought it best to know. He filled Moshi in on everything he'd heard by the agate pool. Moshi frowned. Wu Yan was betrayed by an immortal? Sounds like it, Gumong replied. There's a good chance we'll catch a glimpse of that heartless and disloyal immortal in this portion of her mind. Hold on a moment. Moshi didn't have much interest in any heartless and disloyal immortal, but upon seeing Gumong's earnest expression, he opted to stay quiet. Gumong twitched his fingertips, and the glowing ball rose into the air, floating at eye level. Tell me, said Gumong, why do you infect the men that come to the island with goo? The pearly white ball gradually filled with color as a hazy scene took shape on its surface. The indistinct murmurs of someone's innermost thoughts surrounded them. It was Wu Yan's voice. This happened back when I was young, she said softly. At these words, the scene in the glowing ball began to change. That's the end of the chapter. We are on chapter 101, which is called So Gullible, on page 37. Thank you, Blue. And it's the perfect time for me to take a break. You know, not really any food descriptions this time, but besides the lychees, we just got a very detailed description of a blood pool. So that's fun. I will see y'all in like 10 minutes, and we will go into this flashback together, I guess. So I will be right back. Hello, I have returned. We are back. Back to have a flashbat. Thank you, Henry, for that. I'm gonna be using that term now. It's time for the flashbat. We are on chapter 101, which is called So Gullible. Many years ago, the Dream Butterfly Islands were at war. The demon population on a neighboring island outgrew their lands, and their people had nowhere to go. To expand their territory, they broke our alliance and invaded the islands belonging to the Firebat tribe. After many months of fighting, the invading demons killed the queen, my mother, and massacred the other bat tribes on the island. A crowd of demons slaughtering their fellows appeared in the ball of light. Its pearly gleam darkened, veiled with a bloody haze. I was the heir to the bat throne. Those demons saw me as a thorn in their side and sought to kill me. My elder sister used herself as bait to help me escape, but I was severely wounded. My wings were broken, my tendons snapped, yet I drained my spiritual energy to flee. I was too scared to stop, but I didn't know where to go. Furious waves crashed within the ball of light, thunder and lightning interweaving. I flew over the sea in bat form for many, many days when I met a great storm. My strength was flagging and my wounds were festering. Finally, I could fly no more. I tumbled from the sky onto an unfamiliar island. The moment I fell, I knew I hadn't landed in any ordinary place. Its spiritual energy was too strong. This was the home of immortals. In the vision, the young Wu Yan flapped her ragged wings, attempting to take flight again and again to no avail. I was terrified, she said. Ever since I was little, I was told immortals loved to kill demons. I lay in the grass, thinking how I'd survived the battle between demon tribes, only to die at the hands of an immortal. I wanted to struggle to my feet and fly from the island, but I didn't have the strength. No matter how I tried, my wings could no longer carry me. But my flailing attracted the attention of a passerby. Someone was walking through the flowers, walking toward me. The bat with broken wings collapsed into the grass, near death. She was gravely injured. Her thin wing membranes were torn, and blood stained the leaves beneath her. Her black eyes were wet and wide, the picture of misery. As she lay helpless, a white-soled silk shoe with blue trim appeared in the glowing ball and stopped next to her. An elegant, fine-boned hand reached down and gathered her up. That person carefully protected her, supporting her in his palm. Gumong was smug. Look, didn't I say the heartless and disloyal immortal would appear? The field of view in the ball of light slowly moved upward, from that white silk shoe to those spotless sleeves. Once the immortal's face came into view, both Gumong and Moshi were stunned. The wise gentleman, Gumong exclaimed in surprise. Moshi's eyes widened. Headmaster Chen. I had a feeling it was going to be this person. Honestly. The heartless traitor looking out from the ball of light was none other than Chonghua's sage from centuries ago, Chen Tong, the wise gentleman. It beggared belief. As far as they knew, Chen Tong's cultivation was remarkable and his character faultless, but he was still a normal human. He had never ascended to become an immortal. How could this be? Gumong mumbled. Moshi stared at that glimmering ball of light with a frown. He shook his head. Let's keep watching. In the vision, Chen Tong stroked his porcelain-pale fingers across Wu Yan's fuzzy forehead. His soothing touch passed jade-colored spiritual energy to this little demon hanging onto life by a thread. The scene in the glowing ball slowly widened to show an isolated, near-uninhabited isle. But it wasn't Bat Island. The island in the vision was undeniably strange. Its climate was difficult to discern, for it was filled with flowers and trees laden with ripe fruit. Winter's plum blossoms, summer's lotuses, autumn's osmanthus, and springtime's peaches and plums were all seen. The fertile land was awash in beautiful blossoms, and at the center of the island was an altar constructed from a single massive stone. The altar was empty, save for a jade chin table with the 5-stringed jiaowei guqin arranged on top. There's a footnote for jiaowei, meaning scorched wood, first made by a notable scholar of the Eastern Han Dynasty who created a chin with a beautiful tone from a piece of burned wood of the parasol tree. Gumong turned to Moshi. There is much I still can't remember. Is this island part of Changhua? He asked. No. Moshi stared at that flowering isle. This island doesn't fall within Chonghua's territory. Gumong stroked his chin. How curious. Chen Tong, the wise gentleman, appearing alone on a deserted island outside Changhua. He had no time for further thought before Wu Yan's voice sounded again, this time filled with endless disappointment, frustration, and longing. Perhaps it wasn't my time to go, or perhaps the tales I was told as a child were false. But after the immortal on this island found me wounded, he never tried to hurt me. He took me back to his living quarters and did all he could to heal me. In the ball of light, Chen Tong carried the injured bat to a wood cottage near the little island's shore. I was badly wounded, and my dear mother and sister had perished in the terrible battle I'd fled, continued Wu Yan. Intent on escape, I'd had no time to grieve, but now that I was safe, I was overcome with heartbreak and cried day and night. In the small room, Wu Yan, having recovered her human form, was huddled in a ball, tears streaming down her face. The immortal kept me company. He wasn't scary like the ones in the demon tribe's tales. He treated me kindly, consoling and comforting me. Under his care, my spirits slowly lifted. I stayed for a long, long time. Later, I discovered the island moved from place to place. It never stayed in the same spot for long. Gumong and Moshi exchanged glances. What kind of island was this, covered in flowers and drifting untethered on the sea? It was like nothing they had heard of before. Regardless of season, the island existed in an eternal spring. An immortal lived there, so the spirits of the plants flourished, Wu Yan said. But aside from the flowers and trees, we were the only two on the island. He was kind and good, but far too mysterious. He wouldn't tell me where he came from. He wouldn't even tell me his name. After living with him so long, all I knew was that his surname was Chen. So it really was Chen Tong, Gumong murmured. But what could I do? I called him Chen Guga. Within the glowing ball, Wu Yan had regained some of her spiritual energy and, with it, her human form. She sat by the verdant altar with her delicate legs bandaged, but she didn't seem to be in pain. Her bright eyes never strayed from Chen Tong's figure. Chen Guga came to the altar and played the chin every day. The music was beautiful. Each time he played, illusory high-tong petals fell swirling over the island. I thought this was his immortal magic and begged him to teach me, but he always demurred. He said the high-tong flowers didn't fall because of him. When I pressed him, he only smiled. But he was beautiful when he smiled. I saw him every day, and each time I saw him smile, I was happy. Our time passed like this. Day after day, he treated my wounds, and I listened to him play the chin. And then one day, Wu Yan paused. I discovered my view of the world had changed. Before that, I had the sky, the flowers, the trees, and Chen Guga in front of me. They were all very pretty, and it made me happy to look at them. But one day, I discovered that although the sky, the flowers, and the trees were still there, they no longer caught my eye. Instead, it was as if they had given all their color to Chen Guga. Wu Yan said, "I finally understood. I had fallen in love with him. He saved my life, treated my wounds, and soothed my grief. He shattered my previous impression of immortals." Wu Yan's inner voice sounded like any young girl's, pleasant and sweet, like crisp fruit on a branch. Though he was so mysterious and taciturn, though he was an immortal and I a demon, I loved him, and I was going to make him love me back. A brief silence. But he turned me away. The ball's pearlescent glow dimmed. Within it, Wu Yan was standing by the Qin altar, face in her hands, tears falling between her fingers with a soft patter. It was clear her attempts to win over Chen Tong had failed. When Wu Yan's inner voice spoke again, she sounded tearful. "He was completely shocked when I confessed my feelings," she said. "He said we had only known each other a few months. How could I feel love for him? But isn't love just a feeling? It can be slow and steady like a stream, or something you grasp in an instant." No matter how I pleaded with him, he rejected me in no uncertain terms. He said I could stay on the roaming immortal island until my injuries healed. Then I must leave. I told him that I really did love him, but he said we didn't share the same path. I told him I would cultivate the immortal path for him, but he said he wasn't an immortal. Wu Yan paused. Liar. If he wasn't an immortal, how could he move the island? If he wasn't an immortal, why would petals fall when he played the Qin? I interrogated him, but he refused to answer. In the end, all I asked was whether or not he thought I was pretty. I would spare no effort to become whatever type of woman he liked. But he said his heart was for the Tao, and that he desired nothing else. At this, Gumong sighed. The Firebat tribe wasn't sharp to begin with, and on top of that, the emotions of demons were more stubborn and unreasonable than those of humans. Chen Tong obviously had no feelings for her, but she still hounded him for an explanation. She must have worn him down to the point of helplessness. Cultivators would often say their hearts were for the Tao when they needed to reject a particularly persistent admirer. In most cases, as soon as they heard these words, there was nothing the rejected party could say, no matter how infatuated they were. At the very least, it was easy to accept, since they weren't losing to a rival. And indeed, Wu Yan said as much. I wasn't satisfied with his reason, but what could I do? I couldn't possibly stop him from cultivating, could I? In the end, I had no choice but to leave the immortal island. But before I left, I decided to be stubborn one last time. I told him, since you're a gentleman, you must be a man of your word. You've rejected me today because your heart is for the Tao, with no desire for anything else. So you can't lie to me. He said he wasn't lying. So I asked him to pinky promise with me. I used a demonic spell from the Firebat tribe to tie an invisible thread on his pinky. If he ever went back on his word and married another woman in the future, I would find out, and then I would. Wu Yan sounded lost. Even she didn't seem to know what she would do if Chen Tong married in the future. The scene in the glowing ball shifted again, this time showing the familiar coast of Bat Island. After I returned to Bat Island, I went through many trials and became the queen of the island. Yet I longed for him. Every night I summoned the thread on my finger. When I saw it was still there, I would know he had kept his promise to love no one else. I clung to hope deep in my heart. I went against my nature to cultivate the immortal path, all in the hope that there would come a day I'd see him again. I hoped he would see my sincerity and know my feelings were true. I hoped I could change his thinking. So I kept cultivating and waiting year after year. Until one day... Sorry, Henry. That chin lean is so real. Like, yes, tell us, queen. I did that completely absentmindedly, and then I was like, I feel like my voice is going to sound weird if my hand is on my chin. Until one day, the voice paused, and the ball of light darkened. Within, Wu Yan was flying into a rage, as if she'd gone mad. One day, I found that thread had broken. Gumong turned to Moshi in astonishment. Did Chen Tong marry before he died? He asked Moshi. Moshi frowned, leveling a doubtful gaze at the ball. He shook his head. No, he had no wife or children. Then did he have any similar-looking siblings? No. Strange, Gumong said. According to Chonghua's annals, he died killing the demon beast. But that doesn't line up with Wu Yan's story at all. Gumong's brow furrowed as he continued in a low murmur. I've always felt Chen Tong seemed familiar somehow, like I've seen him somewhere before. What's up with this person? As he pondered, Wu Yan continued to speak. Like muffled thunder from an approaching storm, her voice slowly transformed from sorrowful to ominous. He married. He changed his mind, but not for me, she seethed. For some woman I didn't even know. So much for heart for the Tao, desiring nothing else. He lied to me. He looked down on me because I was a demon and he was an immortal. As soon as a suitable immortal pursued him, he changed his tune. He never intended to tell me the truth. I wished for nothing more than to rush over and rip that man-stealer to shreds, but I didn't even know what the bitch looked like. I was there first. Wu Yan's fury echoed in their ears as piercing as bared claws. I knew him first. He promised me. He was disloyal and heartless. He broke his promise. Gumong sighed to himself. He'd really expected it to be a typical story of a fickle man, but against all odds, it wasn't so. This firebat demon queen had staked it all on a one-sided infatuation. Chen Tong never loved her in the first place, and rejected her the only way he could. She tried to force him to love her, but feelings could never be forced. Nor did it matter who had come first. It was true that Chen Tong had promised he wouldn't marry, and had broken that promise, but this couldn't truly be deemed a betrayal. I left the island to look for him, but the world is vast, and I had no idea where he and that bitch were hiding. On top of that, I was cultivating the immortal path against my nature. For this, I paid a heavy price. No one asked you to do that. I was still young, yet my hair had turned white, my body shriveled and shrunken. Only the Xueling pill made with the blood of the feathered tribe could return me my youth and strength. But why? In the glowing ball, Wu Yan had become a wrinkled old woman raging within the palace. A servant girl trembled as she presented a Xueling pill to Wu Yan on the throne. The instant she swallowed it, it was as though an unseen hand smoothed the wrinkles from her face. Her aged skin became delicate and supple once more, and her withered features regained their beauty. Her youth could be returned with forbidden medicines. Only the innocence in her eyes was forever lost. Mother was right. Immortals really do kill demons. Some kill our bodies, while others kill our hearts. Liar, liar. I don't understand these men who aren't of my tribe. I never want to see creatures like that again. By now, Wu Yan had descended into a frenzied madness. On the one hand, she believed Chen Tong could still change his mind. She harbored the deranged hope that her lost love would come see her again. On the other, she developed an extreme hatred for men of any other tribe, demon or human. She issued an order. If foreign men came to the island, They would be fed goo worms to change their appearance into Chen Tongs. She would use them however she pleased, easing her longing for a brief time. For a love like this, once is enough. I'll never make such a mistake again. Her soft voice faded like ripples on a lake's surface, slowly falling quiet. Once her story ended, Gumong stood and extinguished the ball of light. All that remained was a wisp of white that curled up and floated into his head, the result of him sharing minds with Wu Yan and mastering the Bat Island barrier. Silence reigned inside the thatched hut. Gumong said nothing after completing the spell, and Moshi's head ached from the demon tribe's overzealous emotions. He kneaded the bridge of his nose and his forehead in frustration. The Firebat tribe was beast-like, and their love and hatred came down to something like this. If I love you, I'll make any sacrifice for you. If you don't love me after that, then you're heartless. The situation was a little more nuanced than that, but Gumong still felt rather speechless. Moshi sat on the pile of straw, his head pounding. What is this? Watching him, Gumong slowly formed a cunning idea. He broke the silence to ask with interest, "What about you? Have you ever had similar thoughts?" Moshi lifted his head, confusion in his black eyes. What? As Gumong looked into his limpid, uncomprehending eyes, he felt a twinge of reluctance. But he hardened his resolve, quirking his lips into that infuriatingly roguish smile as he reached out to lift Moshi's defined jaw. Perhaps Wu Yan's rambling really had made Moshi's head spin, or perhaps Gumong's loaded question had stunned him. Whatever the reason, Moshi didn't resist. He let Gumong's finger tilt his face up, staring blankly at the man in front of him. Gumong smiled. Have you ever resented me like that? Moshi continued to stare. Have you ever thought, no matter how much you sacrificed or how much you changed? Gumong's finger slid down inch by inch past that chiseled chin along the rolling jet of Moshi's throat and down to his lapels, slowly coming to a stop on the left side of Moshi's chest. I never actually loved you. Yeah, hold on. I need to... Okay, he's either saying... I think he's saying, have you ever thought, no matter how much da-da-da-da-da, that I never actually loved you? Is he saying that, or is he saying, statement, I never actually loved you? And we know he's lying, but I'm just saying that can be interpreted two ways. Gumong's fingertip tapped against that spot where he had once personally stabbed Moshi. A smile like fleeting mist played upon his lips as he pressed down lightly. The wound had long since healed, but the grisly scar remained. Through Moshi's clothes, beneath Gumong's fingers, it faintly began to throb once more. Arm propped on his knee, Gumong knelt in the straw. He leaned down to stare at Moshi, who was sitting in front of him, and his mouth split into a grin as he asked, General Mo, have you ever felt the kind of resentment she did? The confusion on Moshi's face disappeared with this. Gumong was smiling, but he might as well have slapped Moshi across the face. Moshi was stung. He hadn't expected this strike, and heartbreak spilled from his expression almost instantly. He turned away, biting his lip. Only after a long moment did he gather up his dignity and turn back to Gumong, fixing him with a vicious glare. Chen Tong never said he loved Wu Yan. So? But you... Moshi spoke with difficulty. You did. Oh, did I? Gumong paused. Then let's say I did. But you should understand, what men say in bed in a moment of pleasure can't be taken seriously. Gumong heaved a sigh. Back when I slept with those girls, I would also tell them I love you, I care about you, you are the only one for me. When I was happy, I would say I'd pluck the moon from the sky for them. But look at you. You're a grown man. These words wouldn't fool silly little brothel girls, yet you believed them." He sighed, reaching out as if to pat Moshi on the head. But before he could complete the motion, Moshi slapped his hand away. That's the end of the chapter. Word of, I agree. Shut, mouth, cease. And Blue, yeah, someone gag him. Also, were we not given the information that Gumong, like, never slept with any of those women? He just flirted and pretended like he was going to? I forget if that was confirmed, but I thought that was the deal. Okay. Thank you, Nina. Yeah, okay. We're on chapter 102, which is called Sharing a Room. The smile on Gumong's face froze. Something stirred faintly in the depths of his blue eyes, but only for the instant it took that apathetic smile to return. He looked down at Moshi's handsome face, at this man who currently resembled nothing so much as a dog betrayed by its master, or a cat whose tail had been trod on. Sorrow and wounded pride merged on that bone-white face. I like how Moshi gets to be both a dog and a cat. Tears gathered in Moshi's eyes, but he still stubbornly held on, gritting his white teeth as he stared back at Gumong with a fierce arrogance. So what if I did? I'm not like you. I can't be so careless toward everything. Gumong paused, then burst into laughter. Look at you. And to think you looked down on Wuyan. Aren't you the same? She insisted on forcing it, and you insist on believing it. The tendons on Moshi's pale hands were pushing through the skin, but Gumong acted like he hadn't noticed. There's really very little difference between you. Both of you think what you gave wasn't reciprocated, and spent so many years stewing in resentment. But he didn't get to finish. Gumong, Moshi cut in, pinning him with a stare. Are you being serious right now? Why wouldn't I be? You think I resented and hated you all these years because what I gave wasn't reciprocated? Gumong looked into the flickering depths of Moshi's eyes and almost felt sorrow. But after a beat, all he said was, why else? Moshi closed his eyes. If I hated you for that, why would I have bothered begging you to turn back at Dongting Lake? Why would I have bothered keeping your soldiers, or hoped you wouldn't go to the Liao Kingdom? If I were only upset because you never truly loved me, do you think you could still stand before me and say these things now? Long-suppressed emotions ripped a hole in Moshi's facade of calmness. He finally erupted. If that were my grievance, I've had plenty of opportunities to vent my discontent. I could have taken you by force, humiliated you, poisoned or drugged you. Yet I've done none of those things. Do you think it's because I don't know how? I saw you as my comrade, my friend, my beloved, my God. What I hate is your betrayal and the way you changed. You didn't just abandon me. You abandoned your brothers, your dream, your fathomless glory. You abandoned the man you used to be. Moshi's eyes were red-rimmed. Had you chosen any other path, I wouldn't have blamed you, even if you had nothing more to do with me for the rest of your life. Gumong, back then, you nearly ripped out my heart. Gumong's hands shook slightly. Moshi looked up at him, black eyes dull as a starless night. As he gave voice to the emotions trapped in his breast for too long, he rasped, Couldn't you see? For a while, Gumong couldn't speak. Those dark eyes hurt too much to look at. Gumong remembered the first time he encountered them, back when they looked nothing like this. The first time he saw Moshi, he was standing... Sorry, we got a first time meeting beneath a tree. The first time he saw Moshi, he was standing beneath one of the Academy's osmanthus trees. His gold... I'm just laughing to get through the pain. His gold-trimmed black robes embroidered with the soaring snake emblem. His high ponytail was bound with gold ribbon, and a jade bow rested in the crook of his arm as he sighted a distant target. The wind rose and set his sleeves to fluttering. Sensing someone's eyes on him, Moshi turned back and glanced at Gumang. Those eyes were like deep, still waters, clear and bright as an ethereal lake. His gaze held little emotion. It casually slid away from Gumang. After that, Gumang encountered him again and again at the academy. He saw him sitting alone on the stone steps reading a book, then eating alone leaning against a tree. He saw him leaving the academy's cultivation practice field, walking with his ribbon in his mouth as he gathered his hair into a ponytail, his pale, slender neck emerging from sweat-soaked robes. He was always alone. The young master of the Mo clan is so arrogant. Who cares how powerful his spiritual energy is? He still has no friends. You should hear the headmaster go on about him, how he's so talented and hardworking. I heard, ever since he entered the academy, he practices at the archery range every day until the hour of high, long after dark. Heh, who does he think he's putting on a show for? Gumang had heard the same sentiment many times by now. Long before Moshi knew Gumang, Gumang was well aware of the name Moshi. He was the subject of whispered discussions in the academy, and his lord Murong Lian's mockery. Without intending to, Gumang had inadvertently learned a great deal. Oh, Henry, that's so real. We got the dog and the cat motif and the tree thing. Saramari? Is that how you say your name? I've been quiet because I'm embroidering, but this is so much. I agree, this is a lot. So much is happening right now. Among noble young masters, bad tempers, arrogant natures, phony reputations, and reckless ambitions were only... Oh wait, I read that totally wrong. Among noble young masters, bad tempers, arrogant natures, phony reputations, and reckless ambitions were only too common. Gumang assumed Moshi had no one to blame but himself and didn't think too kindly of him either. So it went until the day Gumang passed by the fields and saw two of the academy slaves kneeling before Moshi. The holy weapon Shuairan crackled in his grip. Gumang saw a young master using his status to bully slaves and was about to speak up for them when he heard one of the slaves sniveling through tears as he kowtowed. Mogongza, we're sorry. We didn't steal your money pouch on purpose. It's just... The thin, sickly-looking girl beside him cried. It's just that we're starving. We offended Murong Gongza a few days back, so the head housekeeper cut our rations. My brother was afraid that I might fall ill from hunger, and you're always alone. That's why we had the guts to try and steal your... Moshi stared at this pair of siblings. Slowly, the red light of the whip Shuairan dimmed to nothing in his hand. Head lowered, he took his money bag from his Tiankun pouch and left it on the stone steps. Then he turned to leave. Watching this play out from a distance, Gumang was stunned. Because of what Hua Po-an had done, the disciples of the Cultivation Academy were forbidden from interacting with any slaves not their own. And they most certainly weren't allowed to help them. That was the greatest taboo at the academy. But Moshi had acted instantly and silently, with no expectation of reciprocity, as if what he'd done was natural. Back then, Gumang had felt something he couldn't put into words as he watched the little lord's fluttering silhouette recede. but he still wouldn't have paid any special attention to Moshi had things ended there. What truly surprised Gumong was the news that spread like wildfire through the academy a few days later. The darling of the heavens, Moshi, had been whipped in punishment for violating academy rules. So even he can't escape punishment, huh? He thinks he's better than the rest of us. This whipping will finally knock him down a peg. I heard it's because he gave his money pouch to a pair of slave siblings. Everyone knows that's against the rules. Usually he's faking diligence, but I guess now he's faking kindness. What a hypocrite. Gumong felt something entirely different in his heart as he listened to the crowd pass judgment on Moshi. When he returned to his room, he heard Murong Lian's unbridled laughter from the courtyard. That Mo asshole is such an idiot. They were just faking it to trick him. I really didn't expect him to take the bait so easily, ha ha ha. My lord is so clever and wise. Moshi doesn't stand a chance. Humph. No matter how strong his magic is, he won't be nominated for the Outstanding Student Award after breaking the Academy's greatest taboo. He thinks he's a match for me? Muronglian snickered. He's 10 years too early. Only then did Gumong realize the case of the starving slave siblings had been completely orchestrated by Muronglian to frame his rival. After those siblings took Moshi's money pouch and cowrie shells... Wait, sorry, I'm losing my page. Okay. They turned around and brought them straight to Muronglian, who filed a complaint with the Academy's discipline elder. Moshi, he claimed, had openly defied the Academy's rules and secretly consorted with slaves. Moshi was the only son of the Mo clan. He would escape severe punishment, but he had still violated the Academy's greatest taboo. By no coincidence, the discipline elder was a friend of Wang Shujun's family. Of course he favored Muronglian. Thus, Moshi was whipped. At the time, Gumong had belonged to Muronglian. He and Moshi had no connection whatsoever. Yet this young master's actions had left him stunned. Slowly, he found himself caring for this Mogongza whom he didn't know. He couldn't say anything to Moshi, much less visit him or make his sympathies known. But that incident planted the seed of affection in his heart. Destiny determined all, and those fated to meet never escaped its pull. A few days later, Gumong was walking down one of the Academy's tree-lined paths. The jade-green lawn was deserted save for a youth sitting alone against a birch tree. Moshi sat in shady silence, nibbling on a zongzi and absorbed in a bamboo scroll spread over his knees. That pale cheek, like fresh snow, still bore a whip scar from his punishment, but he didn't seem to mind. Moshi's lowered lashes were still so thick, his gaze still so clear, free of resentment. A ripple spread through Gumong's heart. He thought this young master was beautiful beyond compare. He stood behind a tree for a moment, gazing at that lonely, elegant figure from afar. At last, Moshi noticed this overly intent gaze and looked up from his scroll. Their eyes met. Gumong stared in silence. Moshi stared back in confusion. This was the first time Gumong met those ink-dark eyes. His palms were a little sweaty. He'd always been a cheerful person, but for some reason he felt anxious. Part of him wanted to smile at Moshi, but another part didn't know what to do. At that moment, Lu Jianxing happened to pass by. Spotting Gumong, he waved and shouted, "Mong-ar, what are you standing there for?" Gumong turned to answer, breaking away from Moshi's gaze and striding off into the distance. The noble Mogongza surely hadn't recognized this nameless little nobody. He probably didn't remember their first meeting on that tree-lined path. But Gumong remembered. Those eyes like black jade. In his mind's eye, they were pristine, containing a purity he wanted to protect with all his heart. In the present, Gumong sighed, looking into those eyes so close to him in the thatched hut. They held hate, resentment, pain, dissatisfaction. Stubbornness and ruthlessness flashed in their depths. But Gumong remembered, the first time he saw Moshi, all they held was a solemn integrity. In the end, this was what they had become. Gumong turned away. He was afraid if he kept looking, he wouldn't be able to stop himself from saying certain things. The heart where his core had shattered was already aching. In the silence of the hut, Moshi murmured, "Gumong, wouldn't it be nice if all I wanted was to have you? Things would be so much simpler if that were the case." Gumong didn't answer him. "But what I wanted was for you to come back." There was nothing Gumong could say. He sat down on the pile of straw, sinking softly into its depths. With a long sigh, he leaned back, staring blankly at the ceiling. He knew he needed to maintain boundaries with Moshi. Moshi was his poison, one that was deadly and without an antidote. He strove to build a wall between himself and Moshi, but the moment he saw those frustrated, sorrowful, heartbroken eyes, his hands would shake as he tried to lay down the bricks. He very, very much wanted to leave the small thatched hut. Other than the straw, all he could smell was Moshi's faint scent. He wore a cold and hard mask, but he didn't know how long he could keep it on in front of Moshi. In the end, Gumong sprang to his feet. He dusted the straw from his clothes, walked to the doorway, and peeked out through a crack in the curtain. The bat demons outside were still looking for partners. It was a chaotic scene, definitely a poor time to leave. He could do nothing but sit back down next to Moshi and stare into space with his chin in his hand. He didn't plan to keep hurting Moshi. That would only hurt him too. But they couldn't just sit here like this either. Gumong changed the subject. "Where is Yue Chunching's life crystal?" "In my Qiankun pouch." "Take it out. Let's have a look." After a moment, Moshi fished out the stone, inlaid with swirls of agate. It shone brightly, its gleam growing more resplendent as they watched. Gumong took it into his own palm and examined it a while, then returned it to Moshi. "Looks like everything is going smoothly on Zhongxiong's side. There's no rush to leave them. Let's wait until those bat demons are in the huts. It's too busy outside." Moshi ignored him. After his outburst, he had sunk into this wordless silence. Gumong knew he must have truly hurt him. Of course Gumong knew what he'd said was absurd. How could Moshi be the same as Wu Yan? They really had come together so passionately, so desperately. He had slept with Moshi enthusiastically, yet now he was criticizing Moshi for making a big deal of it. He had so clearly seen Moshi's attempts to protect him, Moshi's despair, Moshi's willingness to sacrifice his life to make him turn back. Yet in their current circumstances, what could he do but make Moshi hate him, make him leave him? Moshi's heart was soft. He was a man of upright character, and while he might have looked ruthless and cold, Gumong knew he was kinder than anyone. This kindness was like the aid he offered those academy slaves. It too easily became a weapon others used against him. Since Gumong had already chosen this path, he didn't need Moshi's pity, indignance, or dissatisfaction, and he especially didn't need the slightest hint of his love. He only needed Moshi to hate him completely. But when he was so close to him, breathing in his familiar scent, Gumong felt the same disquiet he had in the past. He knew distinctly what he had to do, yet he couldn't stop himself from clinging to one pitiful scrap of delusion, that everything could still be changed, that he could still get as close to him as before, like a moth flying into flame. A delusion that he could still hold this man, lose himself in him, that he could use the excuse of momentary passion to say "I love you" one last time without hesitation. How nice would that be, indeed? They sat on the straw, each lost in their own thoughts as they waited for the bat demons to find their mates and disperse. Suddenly, a pair... Hold on. Haven't the bat demons already found their mates? Like, we've been here a long time, right? Suddenly, a pair of embracing bat demons staggered past the hut, breaking the silence. Through the hanging bamboo curtain, Moshi and Gumong could see them kissing as if they were glued together and hear their flirtatious giggling. Stop rushing me, won't you? We're gathering vital energy for Her Majesty. Aren't we in a rush? The female demon's laughter was muffled by more kisses. You're just using Her Majesty as an excuse. Don't you want to? The following words were drowned out by heavy panting. Gumong couldn't resist shooting a glance at Moshi, who noticed and turned his face aside. Just as Gumong thought Moshi would continue feigning deafness, Moshi asked, without preamble, what does gathering vital energy for Her Majesty mean? Oh, Gumong replied, I think Wu Yan can absorb the spiritual energy produced by the bat demons when they copulate. It's probably a unique trait of the fire bat tribe. Moshi didn't make a sound, but from what Gumong could see of his side profile, it looked like he was mouthing, ridiculous. Fire bats are promiscuous by nature. It's not so strange, Gumong said. Once they've entered their nests, we'll leave. Henry, my brain is 90% 80s song lyrics, I'll have y'all know. That's real. The pair of lovebird bats were still kissing hungrily outside the curtain, their passion palpable even from their silhouettes. But when they tried to push the curtain aside to enter, the male bat stopped. This one's taken. The female bat's voice was soft as flowing silk. The one next door's empty. Let's go there. The two bats stumbled into the hut next door. Just as Moshi breathed a sigh of relief, they heard a thump through the wall beside them. The two bats were pressed against the wall of their hut, just a few feet away. Now the sound of their coupling echoed even louder in Gumong and Moshi's ears. Not so fast. Slow down. Moshi's face instantly darkened. Oh, and that's the end of the chapter. That's the end. When we pick up again on Wednesday, we will be on chapter 103, which is called Suffering. There are 4 F's in suffering. Yeah. So that's the deal with the room that they were sharing. Well, today's stream was fun and angsty as usual. Honestly, we got kind of a lot of information, and I had like my suspicions about the guy, what's his name, Chung Tan, who's like, oh, he's not immortal, but Gumong was like, hey, I remember that guy. He's obviously going to be a very important character. But I was like, I know he's going to be involved in this somehow. Anyway, yeah, that was a lot. I love how we got, like, insight into Gumong's head. Like, I'm not surprised by, like, we're not always just in Moshi's head, and that doesn't really surprise me, but I was surprised to basically have Gumong affirming that he's, like, purposely putting up a wall, because I didn't think we were gonna, like, get an affirmation of that so soon. I thought, like, we were just gonna be like, okay, we know that's what he's doing, but we would have to hold out for a much longer time to, like, know that for sure. But it's like, okay, now we know. Doesn't make it any better. Henry, what was the thing you said? Flashbat? Because I'm definitely, yeah, Flashbat. I'm definitely going to name this stream Flashbat, if that's okay with you. um, I do like your theory, Henry. The person that Chung Tan married was Hua Poan. Toxic yaoi vibes all over that. I was thinking, who says he's going to fall in love with a woman? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Henry. I'm, you know, I'm glad we ended where we ended and not, like, in the middle of Gumong saying terrible things. It could be worse. So, well, I am gonna go, and I hope y'all have an awesome day, an awesome Tuesday, and I will see you on Wednesday for the next stream, and I will be at home, so I can't forget my book. So hopefully everything will be all good. Thank you for coming. Bye.